This is Marina Galvani. I'm the art curator of the World Bank, and I welcome you to this new talk from the series We Are Africa, the Power of Human, Women and Youth. This is a virtual exhibition. For us, it's especially exciting because a virtual exhibition means that we can really reach people wherever and whenever it's possible, given that it's a recorded event. These talks are part of the larger project that will open in May of this year and will present both a virtual reality exhibition as well as a virtual catalog. So please stay tuned because every month until May, we will have a different talk. This special exhibition is really a response to the desire to offer a platform to women and artists and young people to discuss about the future of Africa, and more specifically to address that from many different angles, including women empowerment. So today we have the fortune of having a great group of panelists, not only the fantastic artists and the fantastic expert from the bank, but as well another member, the Youth Transforming Africa Network, which is one of the main partners of this project. This is a network of young people who really use a platform of blogging to discuss about the future of Africa. And among us today, we have the wonderful Dorah, who will be our moderator. And I'd like to pass the microphone to her with many thanks and my deep gratitude to all the panelists whom I had a chance to get to know a little more during this preparation. Has been a true honor and true pleasure. Thank you. Dorah, to you.
Thank you so much, Marina. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from across the world. My name is Dorah Muhanuuzi. I am a writer, feminist, and law student, coming live to you from Kampala, Uganda. I'm also a member of World Bank Africa's Youth Transforming Africa, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. So first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us tonight to deliberate on this very timely discussion on the impact of women empowerment, with particular emphasis on creative arts and international development. Related, I would also like to thank the World Bank for providing us with this opportunity for creating a platform where young people, where women, artists, and experts can come together to discuss the future of the continent that we all love. Thank you so much, Marina, and your team. So on that note, I'll go ahead and introduce our incredible panel tonight. So first off, we have Ms. Ngozi Agboti Helen. Ms. Ngozi is a lawyer with the International Finance Corporation, where she supports the treasury and financial institutions groups. Despite having practiced law and worked in international development for almost 2 decades, Ngozi still dreams of all the things that she will do when she grows up. Ms. Ngozi, you're welcome to today's discussion.
So much. Yeah.
Okay. Our second panelist is an incredible artist from Liberia. Through his starring painted canvases, Taki reflects on his childhood experience during the Liberian Civil War to reveal the complexities of war, power, femininity, and identity. Currently based in Santa Barbara, California, Taki came to the United States from Africa by way of Ivory Coast at the age of 10. He lived through 4 years of war under the protection of local village women. These women shaped his understanding of color and form, encouraging him to process the brutality of war by creating beauty from wreckage. In 1994, Taki was reunited with his parents and siblings and has continued to use his art to contemplate notions of identity, belonging, and rebirth. Mr. Taki, you are welcome.
Thank you.
So without further ado, I am going to invite Ms. Ngozi to present her remarks on this topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your kind introduction, and I'll jump right into it. To speak of gender in development finance is to first set the scene. IFC defines a woman-owned enterprise as an enterprise that is either more than 51% female-owned or is at least 20% female-owned, has more than one woman at the most senior leadership level, and has a 30% female board. In other words, IFC defines women-owned businesses as what they are, unicorns. Guided by the World Bank's gender strategy, IFC has made certain promises to itself. By 2030, half of the directors that it nominates to boards of companies will be female. It will commit $2.5 billion annually to financial institutions that specifically target women, and has also promised that it will quadruple its annual financing that's dedicated to women. From a development perspective, there is clear correlation between financial empowerment of women and improved health care and education levels within households. It's simple. Where mama has more money, meals at home are better, we fall ill less often, everyone is encouraged to get an education. And then from the perspective of being a financial institution, let us be clear, the business case for gender financing is compelling. Companies with gender diverse boards generate a higher return on equity than those without. Companies in which women have equal influence in developing strategy outperform those with no women in terms of performance of share price, especially in times of volatility. Investors in companies that have a strong gender diversity receive excess returns running at a compound annual growth rate of 3.5%. To speak of gender in development finance is to not only have a great story, but it also makes sound financial sense. And IFC has an impressive Rolodex of deals for us to look at. Juliana, if you will. In Vietnam, IFC granted a $130 million loan to C-Bank, a large private sector bank. The financing package comprised a loan from IFC as well as loans mobilized from other international lenders and focused on SMEs, climate financing, and women-owned enterprises. Of that total amount, $20 million is dedicated to women-owned SMEs. The project also received advisory support from the Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative, the WIFI. In South Africa, on the next slide, IFC granted Business Partners Limited, a non-bank financial institution that has a focus on SMEs, a $50 million loan to support women-owned enterprises with loans of between $10,000 to $2 million. And that project aimed to double the company's portfolio of women-owned businesses over a 5-year period. In India, a $200 million facility was granted to Mahindra & Mahindra to grow its micro, small, and medium enterprise portfolio, and half of that amount was earmarked for women-owned MSMEs. And the Women Entrepreneurs Opportunity Facility, WEOF, was involved in conceptualizing a separate woman borrower business line that would provide customized, women-focused financial solutions, including setting up all-women branches. And then perhaps the project that I am personally most proud of. As part of its response to the pandemic, IFC has set up the base of the pyramid program, and that is part of an $8.2 billion COVID facility to support financial institutions that in turn support the most fragile among us, the very poor. The gender component requires financial institutions that benefit from that facility to dedicate 20% to lending to women. To speak of gender in development finance is to notice the features that gender financing shares. So you'll notice how financing women is typically grouped with financing the base of the pyramid or SMEs or climate. And it is that etc. quality to it that we simply cannot deny. It stands out. Some would even say that it grates a little bit. Notice also that however large and impressive the global financing package is, only a portion of the funds are dedicated to women. In the deals that we looked at, you would have seen that gender is merely a slice of a whole, a component to a larger deal. Of that incredible 8.2 billion in my favorite deal, only a sliver is earmarked for women. To speak of gender in development finance is to be conscious that gender is hardly ever deemed worthy to stand alone. And the projects that we have looked at are truly incredible. The data tells us that development finance does excellent work, and we do. I do not know that any institution does more on the global scene. But while data can tell a good story, it cannot tell a complete one. Data cannot tell us about Miriam from Togo, who dreamed of growing her store from a closet-sized fabric store into a spacious boutique. Her auntie taught her the art of buying and selling, and she employs 3 people to help her sell the ever-popular colored wax prints, some of which I'm wearing today. It was her brother, not the institution she had banked with for years, that kept her fabric trading business running. Her bank was only willing to extend a loan after she had built up enough capital. Data also cannot tell us about Fatima, who went to school with me, but chose to answer the alluring chimes of scissors and sewing machines. Over 15 years making clothes, she employs about 10 people, and she has never paid a salary late. Never mind her sustained monthly turnover in her bank account. When she broached the possibility of a loan with her bank, she was advised to consider buying large machines so that she would have acceptable security. Except that Fati does not deal in machines. Her business is to make clothes. Women like Miriam and Fatima do not raise external funding because the existing processes are daunting and poorly adapted to them. Yet we know that these women are the channels through which much of our development positive impacts come. They are the reason why education levels rise, why there is improved health, why there is improved nutrition. They are the unicorns. To speak of gender in development finance is to first acknowledge that finance speaks a very specific language, and that language is not female. So what is the EBITDA for a dressmaker in Isaliko? Who knows what the debt coverage ratio is for the madame who sells in Makola Market or in the depths of the souk in the Medina or in Marché Trècheville? In a system that is designed to only understand the value proposition for building bridges and roads, all of which are undeniably essential, but also all of which are undeniably spoken in a single dialect. Is it really any wonder that Fatih and Miriam's banks could not see the value in their businesses? These women on whose backs we measure development positive evidence, these women who shepherd improved healthcare and education, simply do not have the language to thrive in finance as it currently exists. How would that woman who sold cloth in Onitsha main market, who had no financial ratios, no EBITDAs, how would she have been able to project that one day her granddaughter would be here speaking with you? And yet here we are, perhaps the most concrete development positive impact there could be. To speak of gender in development finance is to speak of a system in which our efforts so far have been aimed at teaching women to speak finance. And one has to wonder whether the higher call is not in fact to teach finance how to speak female. I'll stop there. Thank you so much, Dorah.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ngozi, for that beautiful presentation. What really speaks to me most about what you said is the need to teach finance to speak the female language, but also when you said that to empower women is to empower nations, is to empower communities, which I could not agree with more. Thank you so much. So we are now going to listen to Mr. Taki. Mr. Taki, please take it away.
I am Taki Gold, and originally born in Liberia, and I am an artist.
I understand you prepared a beautiful presentation for us.
This is my painting called White God, and this what I feel in this is what I've always felt and I've seen in my childhood, growing up at 6 years old in the Liberian Civil War, that basically shaped my experience of me in the world, and seeing it through art. The group that I was in was all female, and I saw the hardest choices that had to be made was always on their side, and there was something that that was so healing for me, because they told me to not show sorrow towards the decision being on their side, because that energy was a low energy. So they view it as being honored to be able to make those decisions. So there was one lesson that I learned when didn't judge all of the horrible things that was happened to them, done by men, because they said that they as a warrior, they would never have brought a child into this world that they did not themselves want to be in. So they view all of the soldiers, all of the men, as their child. So this is and the reason why it's also called White God, because they taught me how to be full of myself, and that was the greatest healing. And I did name it White God because I used to go to church with my mom in Liberia, and I was praying for this man that they had up in the church for about 3 years, and I was wondering why God hasn't healed him yet. And until I found out the picture that was up in the church was actually the painting that Michelangelo painted of Jesus. So it was a shock to me that that was Jesus that we was praying to when he looked nothing like me. So that kind of brought me back, to being inwards, to the healing that the women showed me during war. Because if you're not full of yourself, the world's going to fill you up with something else, and usually that something else will be unnatural to you. So that's what's coming out right now as far as when I'm looking at that painting. So thank you for sharing it. This painting, it's called Family of Trees, And again, another decision made by a woman. And when I came to the States, I was shocked how easy it was for a foreign hand to adopt from Africa, and how easy Africa made it, for that to happen. And it wasn't a taboo thing. It was always be presented as giving the child a better life. And that connected with me, because when the Civil War started, I also like wished in that moment that I was plucked away. And the women, as another form of healing, as healers that they are, they just told me that that it was a great honor, because like I was about to experience everything, and in that moment I had the privilege to choose the exact person that I wanted to become. So I didn't have to wonder, and I wouldn't have to explore when I was older and try different things, because I had every single scene available for me. And they called me good food, because like they told me that because of war I would become seasoned. And so this piece, um it's kind of a healthy shame for me, because um to protect our soil, um and to have to have the women in in the power position that 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 is so um unique to them, to actually keep their soil, which I kind of have the contrast of soil being her kids. So so to have a better life, in my opinion, I don't think there's anything better to being able to roll around in the soil that you was born in, no matter how long. So this piece is called Family of Trees, and thank you. This piece is it's called Untrained Eye, and this was the first time that I drew a face, and I chose mine just because I thought it was fair. If I was going to make a mistake, that it would be on me. And during war, I felt, at 6 years old, that I wasn't trained for war. But the women, again, um, with their healing, told me that I've been training my entire life. So they explained war to me through art. So I've danced before, um, I've ran before, I've heard music before. So the sounds of war was my music, um, and the movements of war was my dance. It was my rhythm. So um, with art, because I just started painting for the first time as well, I felt that I was untrained for art. So yeah, so the bravery of the lessons that I learned from those women allowed me to create this piece. And it's just like a symbol to all of us that even in any moment, if we feel that we are untrained, um, we are definitely ready for that situation and any challenges that faces us. So, and this next piece is called War Pose. I was in school in America when I got here, and first documentary I saw of my country was a documentary that Vice Films did of the Liberian Civil War, and the images that they showed were honest, because war is a horrible thing. However, that was the only side that they showed, and I knew in order for me to heal, and in order for my country to heal, the next generation has to see themselves in a way different light, and in the light of value. So this piece, I wanted to be honest, but I also wanted to show the contrast of us as well. So if you turn this piece landscape, that that's actually a AK-47, because in Vice Films, whenever the child soldier posed, they always held up the AK up like that. So I wanted to heal that that vision of us. So that's why that piece is called War Pose.
Thank you so much,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Taki, for that very incredible presentation. When you talked about your experience with the war and how you felt unready at the moment, and the impact that the women around you had on you, they're telling you that, no, you've done this before, you are ready for it. So I realized that the theme of imagination ran through your work, the way the women around you pushed you to imagine, beyond your circumstances. So so that brings us back to the issue of imagination. So I am going to invite Marina to expound the conversation on the power of imagination, and especially in the context of fragile states in Africa. Miss Marina.
Thank you, Dora, and thank you, Taki, and thank you, Ngozi. Wonderful presentations. Just an observation. I had the fortune of working with artists from many parts of the world, and I think Taki so far has been unique in my experience in describing how the incredible sensitive and mature way of the women around him have formed a solid foundation for his personality, using art as a healing tool to express the trauma and the fear of war, and giving you the tools to become the incredible adult you are, incredible human being you are. So I think it would be very interesting for us to hear a little more from you, Taki, because as I said, I work with many artists in conflict areas or in fragile states, in which one of the main issues is to break this cycle of revenge, and this, if you want, the mental health, long-term mental health effect of trauma on both the soldiers, like you were saying, the child soldiers, as well on the people who have been suffering the violence created by the armies or by whoever is exerting the violence. So I would really appreciate if you could expand on the experience of what the women around you did to help you use art to reinforce your personality and to build resilience for your future life.
Yes, thank you. I being so young, the first thing that I started to do was to judge, to play that game of right and wrong, and I just kept hearing, God doesn't judge, God doesn't judge. So and I saw from the women that they wasn't judging what was happening. So and they became my God, because when it says God doesn't judge, I honestly thought they was talking about them. And I mean, what that did, that saved me from not judging myself, and and um and actually having like my say in the war. And I think, well, I mean, in my opinion, wars happen in Africa so easily, because we don't value ourselves, and and it almost feels like we don't have a say. So it's not that we're having a war because there's a quarrel between, between families. There's always an outside hand, and again, um, and there's a healthy shame in that, because that means nothing is resolved, because not everybody has their say, for, for a better outcome. So the way the women, as great healers that they allow me to have my say with my imagination, because they knew my imagination would be more powerful than war. So that's how I became a creator. I created a whole new scene, because, um, again, war is horrible. Um, However, there was this push for me to become more powerful than war, because if I was judging what I consider evil, that meant that evil was greater than my good. So, a lot of times, often people judge evil, and because evil, like, I mean, evil is affecting them, and like that's just it's like, well, your good should be greater than that. That effect of evil, um, should be, should be timid of you. So my mind became, became the greatest weapon. And, today I'm just great with music because of war. I've heard every single rhythm and every single sound. I'm great with colors because there was a lack of color, in the war, because death wasn't only granted to human beings, it was also granted to nature. So everything was dull, but I I managed to, be privileged by seeing every single emotion that a human being can ever have. So that's why I'm also a great artist, because I paint because of feeling. So I match, my feelings to the colors. And, yeah, to go back to your question, I think the most important thing is for us to heal. And in my opinion, women are, I mean, the greatest healers there is. So the value of women needs to be held high, not because they need it or we're giving anything to them. That's what they deserve, because that's just who they are. So if we don't put our women up as gods, it's going to be very, very difficult to actually, it's going to be easier for, a conflict to keep happening, because, you know I mean, like, a good man wouldn't want that, wouldn't want anything that, I mean, that would affect his woman, in that way. So
Many thanks, Taki. Wonderful answer. Dorah, I pass back the baton to you.
Okay. So I would like to know, why was it important for you to reduce those experiences into art?
the um the importance didn't come from me. It has just been the reaction from, people here, as far as people easily, connecting with me, and once they get to know me and they hear my story, there is always this shock that how I could be this person coming from that scene. And so for me, because I created my own world as this, I don't think it's abnormal. I think it's a normal thing for me. But uh, throughout the years, I've been realizing um, um, how unique this is, and that's what has connected my connection back to home, because again, I've been um, very privileged to have that group with me in that war, and most uh, children did not get to experience that. So what has inspired me is the idea of the next generation hearing this story, because it's really important what we tell ourselves, and the stories that we tell of ourselves, um, and also that we tell our own story. And it's, in my opinion, there's stories being told um, about, I didn't want stories being told about my country coming from um, um, the the point of view of people who didn't experience it. So importance, I don't, I believe, is not something that most people search for. Um, I think it's something that genuinely comes to you, and it just becomes your journey, because um, it's needed, just because it's not out there. So if there was another Taki out there, I would be sleeping right now in peace. But there's not. So um, and those women poured everything that they had, for me. So this is just my thank you. I'm not giving them anything back. It's just it's just sharing this gift that was given to me, I guess, the best way that I can explain it.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Taki. So I would like to bring in Ms. Ngozi on that issue, talking about the way that women's stories are told in Africa. So you, as an expert in international development, do you think we are telling these stories right? And when we are telling these stories, what do you think we should focus on?
Thanks, Dora. This business of telling women's stories, there is no one story, right? There is no one African woman. I mean, I'll take my name. I love to brag on my famous namesakes. There's Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. She's Madame of the WTO. There's the other famous Ngozi, who you all probably know better as Chimamanda. That's a whole other life. And I think, and that's just Ngozi's, right? And there's so many different paths. So I wonder whether the question as to stories, whether the question is whether we should be telling a story or we should be creating space for people to live out their different stories, as Taki has said. I don't know that it's anyone's job to tell our stories. I think we just need space to be allowed to live them out loud. That's what I would say.
Okay, thank you so much. So still, I'm going to ask you a second question. So you have shared the important work that the IFC is doing for women and for young people in Africa. But so I was wondering, for especially for young people that are in marginalized communities or in rural communities that might not necessarily be able to access the services that you provide, how are you ensuring that your support gets to them? How are you ensuring that young people or artists in marginalized communities are not left behind?
I think that's a good question. And it helps us focus on what it is the IFC and by extension the World Bank is built for. It needs to be built fit for purpose, right? And these institutions are, as I said, financial. That's what they are. And we know that I wouldn't say banks are the best place for specifically nurturing art. However, to the extent that artists need to be healthy, they need to heal, as Taki's done, they need to be safe from interruptions, they need infrastructure. That is where I see that there is a confluence of interest. The place for development banks or the place for development financial institutions is to make sure there is an enabling environment for artists to exist. So to that extent, I think that young people and artists and women, all of us, have that benefit, have benefit to that infrastructure, have benefit to the financial services, as opposed to institutions that are specifically built to nurture art.
Okay, thank you so much for that answer. Circling back to you, Mr. Taki, I'd like to know, how do you go beyond storytelling through the arts to making impact, in the lives of the people that need it the most? And on this issue, I'd like you to tell us about your foundation and the important work that it is doing for young people.
Thank you. Yes, so the vision of a foundation that I have is called Seed, and to touch on the word empowerment, I'm very want to make this as clear as I could speak. It's not me helping or giving power to women. It is acknowledging where their power is and that I've experienced, and it's in healing. So and the best way that I can do that is to stand up and stand with, not stand in, for them. So my foundation, for example, it's seed, and it has to do with farming, because in my country, over 80% of the farming are done by women, and it makes sense. It also ties back into how great healers they are, because even in farming they are nurturing the soil. So I've bought 5 acres, and there's many more acres that are owned by my family there, and I want to create a sustainable farm where the power that they already have can grow, and also there can be multiple surplus that they can actually transfer that into the market for sale. Because right now, the challenges, the crops that they grow is only enough for them to feed their family, if that. So there's no surplus for them to sell, and in that regards, usually the men are the ones that go off to school, so the women become more dependable on the men outside of the farming. And so I wanted to be very, very careful to actually have a survey done there and ask the women what they would be happy to do, and it was something that they was already doing. So instead of me going and putting my ideas on what they need for, like to go build a school or a church or a hospital, it's like I'm trying to sway away from that, because that part, there's a lot of people that are doing great work with that. But with my imagination, I don't want my to build another hospital, meaning like we're more sick, or to build more schools, it means like we're less intelligent. But there's so much intelligence in farming, and it's just to highlight their strength. You could be smart, but you can also be intelligent, and that way the value is already there. I'm not going teaching them something, or people are not going to teach them something. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna stop there in case I'm floating. Hopefully, I answered your question.
You did. Thank you so much, Mr. Taki, and thank you.
Dorah, this is Marina. It's very hard to hear you. Maybe you want to write the question in the chat. Forgive me for stepping in. So the question, if I understand correctly, is from Ngozi, and is expanding on Taki. So looking at Taki's incredible work and hearing about the powerful women's stories, women stories behind it, how makes this you feel about this, and what you think partners like AFC can do to help artists.
I think Taki's work is beautiful, and with all art, if there is one emotion it elicits, it's curiosity. It's amazing to me how 10 people can look at a single piece of art and everyone goes in a different direction. So to hear you point out how one of your pieces is really an AK-47 turned the other way around, it's very powerful imaging for me. I think we have already touched on the role that institutions like the IFC and other financial institutions have. And I think that role is to continue with development because it is fit for purpose to do just that. And there are conversations to be had about getting other sorts of institutions. Which institutions are there that exist that are a good place, a good cradling for artists, and will be able to offer the sort of support that artists need? I know that we have many colleagues that have a great eye for art, but I'm not sure that beyond appreciating it, we are the institutions that are best suited to support them beyond appreciating their work. Thank you so much, Marina. I hope we answered the right question that Dorah wanted.
I hope too. And my apologies to Dorah for stepping in for her. I think we are coming to our closing, and I have just a very quick question, I think, from Dorah again for Taki about why you feel the need to use art to express your feeling, your emotion. I understand from our chat that you are a fashion designer in addition to being a visual artist. What is your inspiration? What motivates your creative process? And thank you, Ngozi, for the beautiful answer.
Yeah, thank you, Ngozi. That was perfect. Art is incredible because you're allowed to be brave, because as Ngozi, everybody can interpret the artwork differently. And so, but the one thing that is consistent with mine, again, has to do with feeling. And the great part is that everybody can find their story within my art. And art is very visual. And before I came to the United States, the vision that I had of America was houses flying in the sky. So and there was a great value in there, because even after the war, when I landed in JFK and it was so cold that I wanted to go back to war because I couldn't handle the cold, And when I saw the houses on the ground, I was really, really shocked. But it's like there was this awe of vision of being here, and and um and that's my intention with my art, is to have the world come and visit once I'm there, once I have, like, the museum there and all that good stuff, to come and visit Liberia to experience my art. Because once the world comes to visit you um for healing, things starts to change within the government, and the more eyes are on our country, the better we will be to clean it up. If no one's watching, um, anything can be done without anybody knowing. So art is a very, very, very powerful weapon, and I think it ties in with how the women told me how valuable I was to war. So that's why I created this whole world, because I was valued in it. So imagine this war without you, Taki, and they couldn't imagine it being there without me. So um, this is how I feel about my country. Imagine my country without my art. So hopefully that answer your question.
I just say I would like for Dorah to step back in her role, but I wanted just to make a comment. I find absolutely fabulous to hear the two of you talking, Ngozi and Taki, because Taki, you have such a poetic way of describing things, and Ngozi, you have such a vivid, evocative power. Both of you are artistic, not only in your visual art, Taki, but both of you in the way you create for us a new world in front of our eyes with your emotions. Thank you deeply. Dorah, I don't know if you can communicate with us now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Marina, for stepping in for me. Maybe finally for Mr. Taki, I would like to know what sort of conversations would you like us, your audience, to start from your work?
Oh, great question. The conversation will be first to find your healing, your story within my work, because I do art. I'm giving you what I need, and it's something that I've had within, that I've been blessed to just carry it with me. So I'm sharing, and so that's the conversation to the world, to find your story and to find your healing. The conversation to my country is it's just a symbol that, you don't become what you want to become. You become what you believe you are in this moment. And I know that is a universal feeling that everyone can take in, but um, I want to deliver that to my country and to Africa, because the value um, of ourselves are full. We just have to believe that we are that right in this moment. And um, I'm not here to change or fix anything. I'm just sharing to the world, like, what a full human being could be, experiencing everything that a human can possibly experience. So I'm just an example of that, and what it looks like to be healed by warriors who were women. I had the pleasure to have both warriors in war, and then for them to show me how elegant it is to dance through your challenges. So that's my message.
Thank you so much, Mr. Taki. The power of Africa begins in believing in ourselves. That is incredible. Thank you so much. So that brings us to the end of our for Dev Talk, this edition. Thank you so much to our speakers for bringing your expertise and your experience and for engaging with practice. This has been lively and engaging, and we hope to have you in the next edition of the Art for Dev Talk. And
Thank you. I appreciate being here with all of you. Thank you.
And allow me to thank all of you, our panelists, our wonderful moderator, and the audience for being with us. And apologies for some technical problems. And Taki and Ngozi, you've been absolutely wonderful. And I love your image, Taki, of dancing through your challenges. I will keep that for me as my personal golden nugget. And for you, Ngozi, the image of your grandmother, how she would feel looking at you here. Thank you all, and thank you, Dorah, for bringing a feminist to the table. Bye to everybody.